You're not moving that. Not today. Not ever. The words, laced with venom and a saccharine smile, cut through the quiet hum of the suburban morning. That's what she said. The last thing I expected was to be locked in my own garage, unable to leave. All because of an absurd power play by our HOA president. A woman whose petty tyranny was the stuff of neighborhood legend. It wasn't a mistake. It was malice. Pure and simple. The gleaming white SUV, a monument to her self-importance, was angled perfectly to seal off my family's driveway. Was it a joke? A power trip? My blood ran cold. A slow, angry burn spreading through me. How could anyone be so brazen? So absolutely devoid of human decency? My 6-year-old son, Noah, his small hand clutching my jeans, looked up at me, his eyes wide with a confusion I couldn't bear to see. Why is she doing that? Daddy, he whispered, his voice trembling. The sound of her laughter, a shrill, triumphant cackle, echoed down the street. It was an alarm bell, a declaration of war I hadn't asked for. I tried to reason with her. Oh, I really did. I knocked on her door. The sound of faint, hopeful tap against the heavy oak. No answer. I called her cell phone, and the ringtone, a chirpy pop song, taunted me from inside her silent house. The clock was ticking. I had a crucial business meeting in an hour, a contract that could save my small startup. My wife, Sarah, her face a mask of controlled fury, paced the living room. This is insane. Mark, call the police. But a part of me knew that wasn't the answer. Not yet. This wasn't a simple parking violation. It was a character flaw, a systemic failure of our little community's checks and balances. Karen, with her meticulously crafted rules and her self-appointed authority, had overstepped, and I was going to make her regret it. That's when the idea struck me. It started as a tiny flicker, a dark little spark of inspiration. I remembered the conversation with old Mr. Henderson, our neighbor from 2 doors down, the one who'd lived here since the houses were just skeletons of wood and concrete. He'd mentioned something about Karen's husband, Robert, a man who worked in commercial real estate. He's a ghost. Mr. Henderson had chuckled. Never see him. But the wife, she's everywhere. Funny thing is, the house is under her name. But all the bills, they go to AP. Oh, box downtown. A business expense, she calls it. At the time, I'd thought nothing of it. But now, that little detail felt like the missing piece of a very ugly puzzle. I took a deep breath, the air thick with tension. This wasn't about revenge. It was about exposing the truth. It was about proving, once and for all, that her perceived power was nothing more than a carefully constructed facade. I pulled out my phone, my fingers flying as I typed in a few keywords. The search results were a goldmine. The truth, when it came, wasn't a sudden explosion, but a slow, creeping realization. The official HOA documents I found online, buried deep in a public records database, painted a very different picture of Karen and her husband's supposed success. Robert wasn't a real estate tycoon. He was a junior analyst at a firm that had gone belly up 6 months ago. The P.O. box wasn't for business expenses. It was for the mail Karen had been redirecting to hide the foreclosure notices on their home. Foreclosure notices, plural. They were drowning in debt, and the only thing keeping them afloat was the monthly dues from our community. Our dues. Karen's reign of terror wasn't born from a desire for order, but from a desperate, panicked need to cling to a life she couldn't afford. She wasn't a queen. She was a thief. My hands trembled as I scrolled through the documents, the weight of this knowledge heavy in my gut. What a tragic, pathetic secret to harbor. But was it enough to get her to move her car? I didn't think so. I needed to hit her where it hurt most, her reputation, the very foundation of her carefully cultivated persona. The confrontation was as cinematic as I could have imagined. I had towed her SUV. Oh, the look on her face when she came outside was priceless. She stood on the curb, her mouth agape, her eyes scanning the empty space where her precious vehicle had been. The silence was deafening, a prelude to the storm. Where's my car? She shrieked, her voice cracking. My car. You. What have you done? I calmly walked out onto my driveway, phone in hand. It's at the impound lot. Karen. Just like the dozen other cars you've had towed this year for the most minor of infractions. Her face, a roadmap of rage, turned a dangerous shade of crimson. You can't do that. I'm the president. I corrected her, my voice low and steady. And I think you'll find that your presidency is no longer valid. In fact, I think a lot of things are no longer valid. With a theatrical flourish, I tapped the screen on my phone, sending a meticulously crafted email to every single member of the HOA board. The subject line, urgent meeting regarding the financial mismanagement and ethical breaches of the current president. And then, I attached the documents. All of them. The foreclosure notices. The doctored financial reports. The entire sordid tale laid bare for everyone to see. Her face went pale, the color draining away as she understood the magnitude of her predicament. A gasp, a ragged sound that tore from her throat. She stumbled back, the polished facade of the perfect suburban wife shattering around her. You can't. She stammered, her voice a thin, pitiful whisper. This is private. You have no right. I took a step closer, my voice firm. And you have no right to steal from us. Karen, you have no right to torment this community, to block my driveway, to make my son afraid to play outside, all because you're too proud to admit you're a failure. The silence that followed was thick and heavy, punctuated by her shallow, rapid breathing. The neighbors started to emerge from their homes, drawn by the commotion, their faces a mix of curiosity and dread. Mr. Henderson gave me a slow, deliberate nod. A few others began whispering amongst themselves, their glances darting between me and the now broken woman on the curb. The truth, once a quiet secret, was now a public spectacle, a brutal and undeniable reality. Within days, the dominoes fell. The HOA board, shocked by the evidence, held an emergency meeting. Karen's presidency was revoked. A unanimous vote. Her husband, Robert, finally emerged from his phantom existence. A defeated man who looked as though he'd aged a decade in a single week. The community, once afraid to speak out, found its voice, sharing countless stories of her petty cruelties. Our small act of defiance became a catalyst, a rallying cry for fairness and transparency. The feeling wasn't one of pure victory, but of quiet justice. We'd stood up for ourselves, not by resorting to her tactics, but by exposing the truth. The inspiring conclusion wasn't a parade, but a new sense of community, a silent pact to be better, to be kinder to one another. The day after her SUV was towed, a new, hand-painted sign appeared on my neighbor's lawn. A simple welcome in cheerful, bright colors. We had taken our neighborhood back. But the question lingers, doesn't it? Did I go too far? Was exposing her private struggles to the entire neighborhood a form of justice? Or just a different kind of cruelty? Was I any better than her in that moment? Using her own secrets against her to get what I wanted. I wonder what you, the reader, think. In a world full of Karens, where do we draw the line between fighting back and becoming the very thing we despise?